They climb aboard to scattered cheers, secure their safety belts, check the instruments yet again. A quick salute from the starter. Contact! Alcock opens the throttle and he brings both engines to full power. He signals for the wooden chocks to be pulled clear from the wheels. The mechanic leans down, ducks under the wings, armpits the chocks, steps back, throws them away. He raises both arms in the air. A cough of smoke from the engines, the propellers whirl, the Vimy is pointed into the gale, a slight angle to the wind, uphill. Go now, go! It's difficult to encapsulate exactly what any novel is about, but this one is particularly sort of expansive for me in that it ranges over the course of 150 years, and it takes non-fiction narratives and fictional narratives and melds them together. But there are three main journeys that are taken, one by Alcock and Brown, who did the first transatlantic flight from Newfoundland to Ireland in 1919. Frederick Douglass, the great African-American statesman, slave, abolitionist, who came to Ireland in 1846 when the famine was unfolding at his feet. And then Senator George Mitchell, who went to Ireland in the 1990s and helped to negotiate our peace process. And all these stories are woven together with the tales of women. So, in one hand, it's a novel about people who want to take the war out of the machine. So, Alcock and Brown take the war out of the plane by replacing the bomb bays with petrol tanks. Mitchell takes the war out of the political machine in Northern Ireland, or helps to. And Douglas takes the war out of the moral machine by coming to talk about slavery and embracing contradiction. But ultimately, it's also a novel about women and their part in history, and how the supposedly smaller, more anonymous moments are actually braided in very deeply into the proper tenets of history. Yeah, one of my recurring themes for the past probably 10, 12 years of my writing life has been the line, that nebulous line between what's true and what's not true, what's real and what's not real, what's imagined and what's supposedly factual. And I like this territory. It's good territory for a contemporary novelist to be in, because we get fed such a line of bullshit, like left, right and centre, by corporations, by government, by ourselves. One has to doubt what's true and what's not true. There is a very distinct argument to be made that the imagined is as real as the imaginary. The character in my novel is as real to me. Emily Ehrlich is as real to me as any journalist that would have been around in the early part of the 20th century. And so what this does is it puts the novelist in the position where he or she questions the notion of what's authentic. And when we must learn to question what's authentic if we're going to live sort of valuable, proper lives and not be exploited by artists, by corporations, by governments, by ourselves. I took one flying lesson to research this book. In fact, I wanted to know what it was like to fly a small plane. And the guy who took me up, I went out to North Dakota, it was a friend of mine, Scott Olson, who's also a pilot. He said to me, okay, when you do this, you will know immediately afterwards if you're going to be a pilot. Immediately afterwards, when you land, and you will say, I will be a pilot or I'll never be a pilot. I knew the minute I landed that I would never be a pilot. I was petrified, completely petrified, terrible at it. So, but I wanted to know what it was like to fly a plane, and to feel that experience, because I wanted to write about Alcock and Brown, and they had an amazing journey. 16 hours in an open cockpit at 11,000 feet. The tip ends of their hair froze. Their teeth were chattering. They had two huge Rolls-Royce engines in front of them, hammering in their ear for 16 hours straight. It was a most incredible sort of human endeavour. One of the people in the novel is still living. His name is Senator George Mitchell. He still actually lived 10 blocks from in New York, I interviewed him, spent time with him. He read the novel. It was odd for him to read the chapter because it's so sort of forensically true about what he did during the peace process, his journey, what he wore, the colour shoes that he wore. His wife helped me out with, what he wore in his wardrobe. And then suddenly there's these imaginary characters come along, and he meets these imaginary characters who are sort of like ghosts because they didn't really exist, but they were echoes of people that he had met when he was there, and he ended up loving the chapter.